There's a bit of a troubling trend in the United States of America, and specifically on the west coast of this nation, and even more specifically in the Bay Area of California, and that is the targeting of Asian Americans, even more specifically elderly Asian Americans, for hate crimes and other types of violent or property crimes. Now, if you're interested in the specifics of the individual cases, I will be linking a Twitter of a local journalist in the Bay Area that seems to be doing an excellent job of documenting the majority of these cases in the Bay Area. However, what we're going to talk about today is the coverage or the obfuscation of reality by the Young Turks, because they did a video on this. However, unfortunately for them, while they want to blame Donald Trump for the rise in anti-Asian attacks in this country, it doesn't really jive with the people who are actually doing the attacking, because demographically speaking, they are statistically among the least likely people to have been supporters of President Donald Trump. Now, before I get into how ridiculous this Young Turks video actually is, I do want to get into how ridiculous it is to be committing crimes against Asian Americans, especially if you're concerned about the coronavirus, and thus that is leading you to think that you should punish them for that virus. First and foremost, most of these attacks, if you just look them up, come against people that aren't even from China, let alone Wuhan, China. So it makes absolutely no sense for Koreans, Taiwanese, Japanese people to be attacked and targeted for hate. They had nothing to do with the virus. On top of that, if you're thinking, well, some of the attacks are against Chinese people, remember that a lot of Chinese people living in the United States of America are from Taiwan. Taiwan, a nation that tried to warn us about the dangers of the coronavirus. On top of that, another location of people that I've been seeing that are actually Chinese ethnically that are being attacked and targeted for hate crimes are people from Hong Kong. Hong Kong, yet another place that actually tried to warn the United States and the world about the dangers of coronavirus and how the Chinese Communist Party was covering up evidence of the severity of this virus. On top of that, even if the people that are being targeted for these racist attacks aren't from countries that aren't China, they aren't from regions like Hong Kong or Taiwan that tried to warn us, and they're actually from the mainland, that also does not mean that they are carrying the virus or they're any way responsible for the Chinese Communist Party's cover-up. Likely, those people fleeing the mainland wanted to get away from the authoritarian regime in China. And even if they're ambivalent about the authoritarian regime in China, that doesn't mean that they actively participated in the cover-up and allowed people that they knew were sick to travel around the world to spread this pandemic. So none of these attacks make any sense whatsoever on any level, and they're absolutely disgusting, and you should be condemned morally for those attacks, and you should be prosecuted criminally for those attacks. With all that being said, the obvious stuff out of the way, the stuff that should go without saying, let's get into today's video.
Crimes with Asian Americans as the target have skyrocketed in the United States. One of the recent examples involved a vicious attack on a 91-year-old Asian American man in Oakland's Chinatown. Now, currently there is a $25,000 reward for anyone who has any information regarding the crime that you're about to see. And I do want to warn you that the video we're about to show you is pretty graphic and terrible. But with that said, this is what we're talking about.
So I can't actually show you the video that the Young Turks show you on their channel because YouTube has a different system in terms of monetization rules for channels like the Young Turks as compared to mine. While they can run ads on this video, I won't be able to if I show you that information. However, it is an incredibly vicious attack, and it was perpetrated by a guy named Yahya Muslim, who looks like this. And by the way, in case you're curious, this actually qualifies as the first lie in this Young Turks video, because Anna Kasparian specifically said that the police are offering a $25,000 reward for any information on this person's capture. And she said this in a video posted on February 14th, 2021. This person was arrested on February 8th, almost a full week prior to the publication of this video. So the police are not offering a reward for the capture of this person. They know exactly who this person was, and the Young Turks just don't want to convey that information to you. Gee, I wonder why they don't want to tell you that this person is not only behind this attack, but 3 total attacks that same day, including knocking a 55-year-old Asian woman unconscious down the block from this attack that was caught on CCTV.
So you see in the video, some person randomly decides to shove this 91-year-old man onto the ground. Right now, there's very little information about who this person is.
No, Anna, there isn't very little information available on this man. Once again, his name is Yahya Muslim. He's 28 years old. He's been arrested multiple times. He was out on bail at the time, and he committed 3 assaults on the day that one was captured on CCTV. You can look at his picture, you can find out all this information. It was available almost a week prior to you doing this segment, but keep pretending that we don't know who this person is that attacked this 91-year-old man.
But aside from anecdotal evidence, it's important to take a step back and see if there's actually a trend happening regarding crimes with Asian Americans as the target. And the UN actually did a report, an August 2020 UN report, found that there were more than 1,800 racist incidents against Asian Americans in the United States over an 8-week period from March to May of 2020.
Now, it was at this point in the video that my little antennas started spiking up. Because for some reason, when we're talking about a series of serious violent crimes, including murder, that are targeting elderly Asian people and Asian people in the Bay Area more specifically, Anna Kasparian is all of a sudden doing a report that talks about racist incidents, not crimes. And I don't know why she's doing that, except I know exactly why she's doing that. Let her continue.
And that report, by the way, does include several examples of what the UN report is referring to. For instance, in one reported incident, a Japanese American woman walking in Los Angeles, California with her 2-year-old son said a white man rolled down his window and said, "Tell your kid when he grows up that China did all this." And what he was referring to was the pandemic.
Oh, a white man said something racist to a Japanese person. You get the game now. You understand what's going on, why we're talking about racist incidents instead of seriously violent crimes against Asian Americans, because now we're talking about a white man that said something racist. We were just talking about a black man that assaulted 3 elderly people in vicious ways, and Anna Kasparian didn't racialize that. She didn't even tell you who the person was, even though they were caught a week prior to the publication of this video, and everybody knew who the person was. Now we're talking about a guy who yelled something racist against a Japanese American. Now, by the way, you shouldn't do that. It's incredibly embarrassing. I talked about why you shouldn't do that in the beginning of the segment, but that's what we're talking about now, and make sure you know that it was a white person.
Right, so obviously I think it's pretty clear now that Donald Trump's rhetoric had an impact on the way that people treat one another.
Oh, I see what's going on. It's Donald Trump's fault. The evil bad orange man is the one who's creating all this anti-Asian hate crime across the country, because he dubbed it all the way back in November of the previous year, 2019, the Wuhan coronavirus. Oh wait, that was the mainstream media. They were the one who was tying this virus to the location, because that's what we always do when it comes to viruses. But Anna Kasparian has figured something out. She's figured out that it's Donald Trump. That's why in Italy, by the way, even before the virus hit over here, they were already talking about a rise in anti-Asian hate in that nation, because people know where viruses come from, and some ignorant people end up targeting the ethnic minorities associated with where the viruses come from. That was also Donald Trump. This rise in anti-Asian sentiment also related to Trump. It's all Trump, orange man bad. It's clear that the orange man is the one responsible for all of this.
On the other side of the country, at a grocery store outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, a man yelled, "This pandemic wouldn't have happened if you stayed in your country where you belong," punctuated with a racial slur.
Notice what Anna Kasparian is not telling you here in terms of this story. You see, the first story was a white man yelling something at a Japanese American. But this story is just a man. All of a sudden, the race of the man is completely irrelevant. The person who said the slur, where they come from, doesn't matter. Kind of like the first guy, the Yahya Muslim guy, the one who actually committed the crime. Kind of like his image, name, and race are completely irrelevant to the story. The only thing that's relevant was the white man that yelled at the Japanese lady in Los Angeles. Do you see what's going on here? Do you understand? Are you following what Anna Kasparian is not telling you? Now, as somebody who's pretty used to the deceptive tactics put forward by the Young Turks, I gotta got curious about this attack outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I decided to look into the source that the Young Turks has put on screen in order to determine what were the particulars surrounding that attack. However, I did not find the information I was looking for. Instead, I found something a little bit more interesting, and that is that this article that Anna is referencing to cover a story about attacks that have happened in the last couple of months actually came out on Business Insider on October 14th, 2020. So Anna Kasparian found out that a disproportionate amount of hate crimes were being committed against Asian Americans by Black Americans in the Bay Area, and she decided that she didn't want to cover that, so she looked all the way back to October in order to find a source that had something related to a white person yelling something mean at an Asian person. Again, I don't condone it, I condemn it fully, but this is hardly relevant to the matter at hand. We're talking about serious violent attacks, and the idea that you would narrowly focus on this period between May and March of 2020 makes absolutely no sense, especially when, even if you look into that specific period of time for attacks that are actually crimes and not verbal attacks that are non-crimes, you will find the same pattern, the same trend that we see with the attacks that are happening more recently, the ones that are gaining the national media attention. Like, take how this entire neighborhood treated this 70-plus-year-old man who's poor and is actually gathering recyclables in order to eke out a meager existence.
I hate Asians. Look, he's scared, OG. Crack his. You hear that? Get your ass.
Man, hey, go get your kids, man. Go get your kids, man. Go get your kids, man. Go get your kids.
Go get your kids.
Oh, yeah.
He just robbed your dumb ass.
Go get the kids.
He said, get the fuck off of him. Get your ass. He said, get the
You better go get your kids. That nigga made a good
He don't want to hit him up. They all his kids. Huh? Go get your hell 9 helping this.
That video is from the middle of April 2020. It is within the same arbitrary period that Anna Kasparian tried to confine herself to in order to get an orange man bat out of this story. However, Anna doesn't cover that despite that actually being a crime and not people just saying mean things. They're threatening this guy, they're chasing him down, they're assaulting him, they're bullying him. It's obviously for racist reasons. You can hear them saying that it's for racist reasons. And Anna doesn't show that video, even though a video is a much clearer example than an article that just has some text related to an incident in a grocery store or somebody driving by somebody else in the city of Los Angeles. Why didn't Anna show that to you? Because she can't really convey the information that she wants to convey with that example, even though that's perfectly exemplary of what's going on in this country in terms of Asian Americans being attacked by racists.
Now, believe it or not, our First Amendment protects that kind of speech. That kind of hate speech is protected.
Yes, Anna, our First Amendment protects unpopular and nasty speech. That's what the First Amendment is for. Now, while you're complaining about hate speech, which is a concept that does not exist in American jurisprudence, there's actual crimes that you seem to be ignoring. While you're complaining that we don't have a more authoritarian system of government, there are actual crimes that are serious that are being committed against Asian Americans that you don't seem that interested in covering.
So there's a bunch of distinctions here that are important. The ones where they're yelling at folks, it's clearly based on their race. But the ones where they're committing violence, they didn't say anything. So it's harder to know if it was about race. And so Trump riling people up against Asians is super clear.
Now, if you haven't figured this out, the trend that Cenk and Anna are so desperate to obfuscate is that it's disproportionately Black people that are attacking Asians in the Bay Area, targeting them for hate crimes, and the way that they get around actually acknowledging what's happening in the Bay Area is they say, well, not all of these are confirmed hate crimes. A lot of them are just them targeting Asians for robberies or other insane violent attacks that aren't based on anything except for the fact that people in the Bay Area barely get any bail and they just let out repeat offenders constantly that would be attacking maybe any elderly person that they saw in their sights. They just happen to be in the Asian district.
They did apprehend one of the people who did it. There's at least 4 different cases in Northern California, and that guy happened to be African American. So that's just statistically improbable that he's a Trump supporter. So let's just be fair about where this is coming from. And hate can come from anywhere. In one case, a lady was knocked over and they stole her purse, and so that was likely a property crime. But they should investigate. And it doesn't mean it could still be a hate crime if a black guy did it. It could be a hate crime if anybody did it. So I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, but I also wouldn't preemptively conclude that it was.
Again, Cenk being incredibly weaselly here. He's talking about how just one of the people that were arrested out of like 4 attacks happened to be African American. No, that's not the case. If you look at the people being arrested for these attacks, they are insanely disproportionately African American. You can see them in the numbers. You can see them actually committing the crimes before they're arrested on all these videos. You know what the trend is, but you just want to ignore it. Take, for example, the case of 19-year-old Antione Watson, who thought it was a good idea to run across the street and shove an 84-year-old man into a garage door, killing him. Now, there is video of this, but once again, because the Young Turks have different standards than I have, I can't show you that video, but you can seek it out for yourself. Not only did Watson kill this 84-year-old Asian man for no discernible reason whatsoever on video, but it's important that you guys also know that he has the support of his grandmother and his community in these trying times for him. His grandmother says she just wants him to walk free and she loves him so much, this elder abuser who killed a man on his morning walk for no reason.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to bring up that there has been, and I'm not into like scaremongering or anything, but the numbers bear it out. There has been an increase in crime overall throughout the country. And gee, I wonder what has led to that. I mean, crime tends to increase when people become desperate, right? And tens of millions of Americans lost their jobs during this pandemic. The federal government has been unbelievably shameful in the way that they've responded to it in terms of providing the relief that Americans need. I'm not justifying these crimes. Please don't, misinterpret what I'm saying. But there is a correlation between, economic instability and an uptick in crime.
One of the ways that you know that the Young Turks have no interest in this story whatsoever is the fact that they constantly dance around the topic at hand. Now, if this were a story of white people disproportionately targeting Asian Americans for hate crimes, or even a story of an individual white person targeting an Asian American for a hate crime, the Young Turks would be condemning it fully. And so would I, by the way, because that's what good moral people do. They condemn violence against other people. They condemn hate crimes. They condemn targeted racist crimes. That's what good people do. But since it's black people, and it's obviously black people disproportionately doing this, not all, of course, we all understand that. We're adults, except for the regressive left that does not understand that concept. The Young Turks are dancing around it and blaming socioeconomic issues. If only Trump had given out more stimulus checks, people wouldn't be shoving elderly Asian people into garage doors, killing them, and having their grandma come out and support them and say that the community is behind them, killing this person mercilessly. If only they got the full $2,000, that wouldn't be happening. Now, in reality, what's happening to Asian Americans is nothing new in a worldwide sense, or even in the United States of America. Thomas Sowell has written extensively about the perils of middlemen minorities when they're surrounded by less successful majorities that blame them for their failures instead of looking inward. Obviously, when you talk about this, the Jews come up very often. They are often targeted by people who think that they're stealing from them because they're doing better. Germans in Eastern Europe also face this stigma. Overseas Chinese people also face this stigma. And among black communities in America, the targets of this have been Jews, Caribbean black people, and of course, Asians. So this is not new in any way, shape, or form. However, it's magnified by bad policies like the fact that people in San Francisco don't get bail for any of the crimes that they commit, so they keep getting released and re-released because Chesa Boudin is not interested in prosecuting criminals, and the same kind of sentiment has run rampant in the city of Oakland. It's also not surprising that this is going on and continues to go on and has lots of foment when you have people that are more interested in providing cover for the perpetrators than actually caring for and seeking out to protect the victims, just like the Young Turks.
A report by the Council on Criminal Justice found homicides have increased sharply in 2020 across 21 US cities with relevant data.
Now you might be thinking that I made a weird cut in the Young Turks video that I'm responding to, But I assure you I did not. At 5:13 in this video that's over 6 minutes long, the screen just goes completely black. The Young Turks, their will to bail out of this topic as soon as possible was actually manifested by their editing or their uploader bailing out of this video as soon as possible, even before the video concludes. And this is not a joke, they still have the segment at the end of the video where they beg for money, but yeah, it's just blank for like 45 seconds in the middle of this video. Multi-millionaire invested into this news agency, and this is the great level of content that you'll get. A screen that just goes completely black for no discernible reason whatsoever. Look, it is incredibly unfortunate what is happening to Asians in this country, and I hope that you guys will not look away. I hope that you guys will not allow the fear of being called racist to goad you into tolerating racism just like the Young Turks are doing with this very segment. Look into the stories, look at the evils in the world and face them and demand that there are consequences for the perpetrators of these crimes. Identify the problems, and no matter who the perpetrator is, demand that there's prosecution of those criminals. Don't brush it aside, don't ignore it, don't make excuses for it, don't talk about how if only we had more coronavirus stimulus money, this wouldn't be happening, because it is clear and obvious that a huge portion of these attacks are due to anti-Asian hate. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social media accounts. They are linked in the description of this video. Support me via the support links. This has been me talking about the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. Till next time.